So recently Balenciaga did something bad. They had this new campaign where children were holding teddy bears, and the teddy bears were dressed with BDSM accessories. Why did they do this? Why did they have this campaign? I think it's related to the ever-ongoing battle of staying relevant. Especially now, when people are constantly just sucked in by TikTok, Instagram, and other social media. People are open to communication almost 24/7, and I think companies are fighting just to get a slice of that attention. Before we start, I also would like a slice of your attention. So this video was supposed to be very quick and short, but like all these people here on their phones, I got completely sucked in by the story, and it took me a lot longer than planned. So all I ask, if you watched the video and you enjoyed it, is to give it a like. That'll really help me with the YouTube algorithm, and I'll be able to reach a lot more people with this video. Thank you. Balenciaga is a luxury fashion house founded all the way back in 1919. It was founded by Cristobal, can you guess his last name? Yeah, Balenciaga. Cristobal started his first boutique in San Sebastian in Spain. The Spanish royal family and the aristocracy all wore his designs, so yeah, he was a pretty big deal. When the Civil War started in 1936, it forced Cristobal to close his boutiques, and he decided to move to France. A year later he opened his first store in Paris, and almost immediately it was a big success. Over the next 2 years, his designs became highly sought after, and the press called him a revolutionary. During the Second World War, some people even risked their lives by traveling across Europe just to see his designs. He started to experiment with his style after the war and eventually created some very iconic pieces, like the chemise dress, the balloon jacket, and the sack dress. I would say Cristobal really dared to challenge the norm. His manipulation of the waist is called his most important contribution to the world of fashion. He closed his fashion house in 1968 when he was 74 years old. He had been working in Paris for 30 years and decided it was finally time to retire. Unfortunately, he didn't enjoy retirement very long, since he died only 4 years later back in Spain. The fashion house was then dormant for 19 years, until 1986, when the Jacques Bogart Group, which is a holding company, bought the commercial rights to Balenciaga. They had a pretty hard time, because for the next 10 years, Balenciaga would struggle to find its way back to the status it once had in the 50s and 60s. It was clear that the fashion house had lost something very important. The passion and vision that Cristobal had were really hard to replace. Balenciaga had to be reinvented from the ground up. It was 1997 when Nicolas Ghesquière became the new creative director. Nicolas would stay with Balenciaga for the next 15 years, and he is credited for making the brand a success again. He really put himself on the map as a designer and lifted Balenciaga to its prestige status once again. If we then fast forward to the present, the current lead designer is Demna Gvasalia. He is originally from Georgia and is heavily inspired by the way ordinary people dress and oversized streetwear. I think maybe the most well-known item created under Demna's leadership are these chunky sneakers. And I bet you've probably seen them somewhere before.
I think whoever designed these was just like, how much can we f with sneakerheads and make the worst shoe ever made that they still will probably buy? $800?
So as you can see, Balenciaga has quite the history. And I think it's important to realize that they really struggled with their identity in this specific period. And recently, Balenciaga fucked up. They had this new campaign starring kids holding teddy bears that were dressed with BDSM outfits. This campaign didn't do well with the public. There was outrage all over the internet, and people called out Balenciaga for exploiting kids. Kim Kardashian, who is a brand ambassador, also expressed her concerns and said she would reevaluate her partnership with the brand. And then came the excuses. Of course, Balenciaga withdrew the campaign and apologized for their bad choices and any harm they had caused. Alright, apology checked off, let's move on. Or not. I guess the big question is, how did this happen? These marketing campaigns can cost up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have directors, set designers, specialized photographers, and whole social media teams who specialize in getting as much traffic and clicks as possible. Every item on a campaign picture is carefully and purposely placed there. They basically say that they came up with this campaign, they thought it through, executed it, and post-processed it. And throughout this whole process, there wasn't a single person who thought, you know what, this probably isn't right. And that brings us to shockvertising. Advertising done by deliberately shocking or offending the audience. This invokes a reaction and usually causes an outrage. A prime example of this is the Italian clothing brand Benetton. I won't go into too much detail, but Benetton started out as a small company founded by siblings Luciano and Giuliana Benetton. Since the 90s, they launched multiple very controversial campaigns, like this picture of David Kirby, who was dying in a hospital because of AIDS. The image caused a lot of controversy with gay rights activists who called for a brand boycott. Or what about this one, a priest kissing a nun? This image deeply offended the public in Italy. Under pressure from no one less than the Vatican, the ad was officially banned. And even before the official ban, over 1/3 of all magazines that were contacted by Benetton refused to publish the picture in their magazines. Over the years, Benetton offended a lot of people. They dealt with lawsuits, protests, and a lot of angry people, all over extremely controversial advertisements that had nothing to do with clothes or fashion. Their sole purpose was to shock and offend. Because shock, outrage, and controversy are things that people remember. But apparently not forever. I found this business profile on Benetton, and you would probably think, well, with all these controversies, lawsuits, and people boycotting the brand, there's no way they're successful. Wrong. To quote the article, Benetton has successfully grown from a home-based business to a multinational conglomerate. Okay, well, at least the article must mention their horrible campaigns, right? Wrong again. It's all about the numbers, the revenue, the profits, the expansions. Those things are the only things that matter to a business in the end. And sure, there's a small mention of their controversial campaigns, but it's all praise. How? Why were people so upset when it happened? And now, years later, the advertisements are being praised. Because their strategy worked. Benetton offended so many people, and by doing so they managed to spread their name. They took the lawsuits head on, they apologized every time, and sometimes they had to take down their ads almost immediately. But in the long run, they got what they wanted. Balenciaga is going down this same path. Under Denva's leadership, they've had multiple campaigns with the purpose of shocking people. The oversized streetwear style goes really well with the image of being bad and rebellious. Does it justify their latest campaign? No, of course not. But I refuse to believe that this was an accident. This campaign was carefully crafted to offend and shock people. Kim Kardashian and other celebrities might be rethinking their relationship with Balenciaga, but the fact is that they openly talk about it in front of millions of followers. There's no such thing as bad publicity. And who knows how many of those celebrities will come back to Balenciaga once the storm settles and enough apologies are made. I guess this is the world we live in right now. Cristobal Balenciaga, the revolutionary designer who started his own fashion house because he had a burning passion in his heart. Those times are far behind us. It's all about the numbers, the clicks, the profits, and the shareholders. With every single person constantly being online, companies will have to go further and further to compete with each other in the battle to stay relevant. I'm really curious, what do you think about all this? Do you think this was an honest mistake, or was this campaign done on purpose? Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you next time.